Welcome back for another episode, guys. We'll try and achieve some more stuff. Here we go. I've got the hub stripped off here, and you can see the brakes are quite nasty. Obviously been sitting outside for some time. A lot of dirt, rust, corrosion in there. They were stuck to the drums. The drums have got a fair old lip on them, if you can see that. So quite worn drums wise. The brake linings aren't terrible. They've probably been done before, but they haven't done the drums, which is obviously they probably should have done new drums. Locking nut systems are different one side to the other. To give them a fair hard time with a chisel to do them up. So this one has the bend over lock tab. So you do both up and you bend one of those locking tabs over the nut. This one has a dimple there, lots of indents here, and then a little tang there that locks into the axle spindle, and that all holds it tight, so that locking tab goes in there. And then, yeah, it's physically impossible for it to back off. So, but that's all good. I've noticed the hubs are different. This style, I don't know what they call it, what brand they are. Can't see a make on them, but the original rear end that come out of this had Malco hubs on it, which I will show you them outside. And I believe the drums are different. So you can see these drums bolt on with an extra bolt in the middle of the spider hub. Just keep that in mind, and then we'll go for a walk out here and have a look at the rear end that come out of it. In which there's no flange for the nut to attach to. So obviously the bolts thread into the back of the hub, which hold the drum on. The good news about, well, I'm hoping that I can put all these hubs on those diffs. So this is side-by-side comparison. That hub versus that hub. They're the same axle housings, but appear to be different hubs. So this has new drums and brake linings, and we'll see what the bearings are like, but I'm going to use all the new bits out of these rear ends on these axles here. So, and just to recap, all we're gaining by doing this is getting this original style diff housing. See how this is plated here with reinforcements, and it's got these spring hangers, and that front one has no plating and just a little half hoop spring hangers. And obviously, as I said earlier, the track is 60mm difference on the front tyre versus the rear tyre. 30mm each side, I believe, which isn't terrible, but you can see it there quite easily. And I've measured every which way, and they're definitely different. So yeah, I'm going to use a combination of new parts, old parts off these ones, and hopefully make it all work. That's my plan anyway. So yeah, I'll go back in the shed, and I'm going to strip all these old brake linings off and get ready to pull the diff center out so I can check it all over. All looks really good so far. I'm happy. The oil looks good. One side wheel bearing looks a little rough, and the other side looks like it's been replaced. But yeah, I'll get all this brake hardware off and slack adjusters off. I'll probably reuse the S-cam tubes off the other rear end, because you can see that's quite pitted in there, and I don't want to have to fill that up with bog or anything. It just looks a little bit average. The rest of this diff housing is all right, apart from these tubes. It's just had something sitting on top eating away at it for some time, I think. So we'll get these brakes off. I've got the diff stripped of all the brakes and everything now, so it's just the spindles and the backing plates. I've still got to pull the S-cams out and the S-cam tubes, but I've flipped it over and undone all the bolts around the diff center. So now I'm going to put a bit of bar through here, through the yoke, and put a sling on there and put some weight on it and give it a bit of a tap around it and try and break that free so I can get in there and have a look at the diff and the bearings and the crown wheel and all that sort of stuff. Make sure that that's all okay. So that's what I'm doing next. And then once I get it out, lay it all out, I can have a look through it, and then I might go outside and get the original rear axle from this truck and bring it in and strip all those bits off and start building it back up, like put all the brakes on it and everything and all that sort of stuff. I just got to decide how far up I'm going to build it before I paint it, because obviously I want to get paint into every nook and cranny, and if I put it all together there's going to be some bits and pieces that don't get paint on them, so I just don't want any rust bleeding out anywhere. But anyway, I'll see if I can get this diff center out and show you what it looks like when I get it out. Okay, this is the first look at the diff, and it's looking pretty good. Just looking at the wear marks on the crown wheel, it looks like it's very heavy on the backside there. I'm not up with all sort of how to set them. I reckon this one has a bit too much backlash, but I'm going to read the manual and see what I come up with. Looks like there's a little bit of surface rust in places, but nothing too terrible. This is what engages and disengages the 2-speed. I don't know how it... I believe there's a planetary gear set in there, but I'll have to see if this is seized because that top's been open. So, but I've got a couple of decent ones of those, which I think should be okay. Looks like someone's maybe been in here before with that yellow mark. I'll turn it around so I can read this number on the crown wheel and go from there. But yeah, this one looks alright. Looks like it's had a bit of a failure before. Something's gone astray in there and hit the back of the housing, so I'd say it's been rebuilt before. Got a magnetic fill plug in there. So yeah, that's alright. If the front one looks like this, we'll be laughing. Alright, I'll do a bit of investigating and sit it on a pallet, and then we'll see where we go from here. With a bit of effort, I've brought the rear tandem set up here to the shed so I can work on it. I'm going to strip these 4 wheels off and then pull the hubs and drums off just to double check they do fit on that axle housing in the shed, because if it didn't fit, it would be a waste of time painting those up. So I'm going to make sure everything fits, and then I'll pull off these S-cam tubes. These bushes have a bit of wear too, so I'm going to put new S-cam bushes in. I'll hopefully either one of these S-cams isn't worn out, and I can use them. New slack adjusters, new boosters, so they don't matter. And yeah, I think I'll reuse these brakes because they've got plenty of meat on them. I'll double check them when I've got the drums off, but yes, someone's done the brakes and drums recently, like I said, so I think they'll be able to go again. So I'll rip these wheels off and see what we're working with. I've just picked up the front diff and brought it over. I'm just going to clean the drain plug up and drain this oil just before I get too in depth here. I want to make sure the front diff has nothing nasty hiding in there. If that oil is clean, we will proceed as we were. So I just wanted to have a look and check it out. And under here, somewhere in there, is a drain plug somewhere. And I've got to dig it out and see if I can find it. The moment of truth here, if I undo this and steel comes out, I'll be sad. Not too bad, little brown, but not terrible. Not terrible at all. I think this is a magnetic drain plug, so as well. Oh no, this one's not. I've got 2 magnetic drain plugs to go back in these, so that'll always good to have a magnetic drain plug. So I think it's got a magnet. Oh no, it's not even a magnetic fill plug, I don't think. So that's okay. No chunks is the main thing. Bit dirty, but it's not terrible. Doesn't look like anything shiny in there really. All the shiny stuff would have been at the bottom anyway, the first bit that come out. I should have put my finger in that to see what it was really like. All the heavies would have sunk to the bottom, but poke my finger up in there and have a feel on the bottom. Yeah, it's not bad. Bit of sludge in there, but nothing terrible. We'll let that drain and we will proceed as planned. I've measured up the axle tube here, and the bearings are the same size, seal surface, everything looks the same, so it looks like the hubs are going to swap over, but I will just sit one on to verify that they do before I get too carried away. So that's the plan. I'm just mucking around here with the rear diff center. I've pulled off the 2-speed actuator. This has been open for some time, obviously had the fitting snapped off in the top. It still had oil in here. You run, it says an SAE 10 oil up to that level. It still had oil in there, but it had a bit of water, obviously. So this moves the fork in and out like that. And that's what engages and disengages your 2-speed. So that's disengaging and engaging the planetary gears in there. It's like an excavator final drive in there almost, I believe. And that's what engages and disengages it. So now I've got 2 off a dump truck I wrecked here. These ones engaged and disengaged the diff locks, but I believe they're the same. They look identical to me. But I can put a screwdriver in here and move these from side to side where this one is C. So I was going to pop the top off and have a look in there. And if it's too terrible, then I'm going to use one of those other ones, or at least build one good one out of the 2. The front one, the one on the front diff, still has the fitting in it, so I'm thinking that that should be okay. But these are like, I don't know, they're like $1,000 new or something. So when I saw that this dump truck that I wrecked had them on it, I grabbed them because I thought I'll definitely use those on this. So I'm just trying to use 2 hands here. And I'll crack open the top here and just have a bit of a look and see what we've got going on. Just trying to find the right spanner. So I'm just trying to get this front diff buttoned up back together so I can sandblast it before the weekend, and then I can paint it over the weekend potentially. That's my plan. If not, if I don't get that done, I'll rebuild the kingpins this weekend, I think, because the kingpin kit showed up. I haven't done a no ream kit with the spiral bushings before, so I'll have to show you what they're like. They're a little bit different to what I've usually done, so we'll see how they go. But I suspect this will be well and truly full of water, so if I can avoid dropping it on the ground before I get to that point. They got square-headed bolts on them so they don't turn, which is nice. As long as there's not a big spring under here that like shoots it off, we'll be right. Yummy. That definitely is stuck. So I think we're just going to clean up one of the other ones and use that. I'm not sure if there's O-rings or seals in there or what, but that's definitely stuck. So this is a nice looking one. There is different part numbers, but I'm not sure what the there's 2 different types. And I'm not sure what the different types exactly are, because these look the same, but maybe they're a different height. Maybe not. I'll have to get the tape measure out and do some measuring and see if they're That one has an extra plug there. Same amount of bolts. They look the same height. They look very similar. So I'm thinking that will do the job, I reckon. But I'll put out of this one to make sure it works and doesn't leak. And go from there. I'll see if I can... This is a Spicer one, and that's Eaton. So obviously these are just later, I think. But I'll do some research and make sure they're definitely the same. Just having a closer look at the part number, I think that says Spicer 3.358517 maybe. And this is a bit smaller, but it says 3.358. It looks like a 517, so I'm thinking that they're the same. So I'm happy with that. I'll make sure it works and I'll slap it back on. Here with the SAR, front axle's in, so got a bunch of parts waiting for me, ready to go here. I've got diesel down under merch on, got hoodie and the beanie because it's still cold, but we'll get stuck into it. We've got a no-ream Kingpin kit here. It's got interesting spiral bushes. They're almost like a helicoil. Haven't used them before, so that'll be interesting to see how that goes. So we're going to do both the Kingpins, as I will show you. This side is bad and this side is good. Obviously, this being the left-hand side, this is the side that dips off the road often, I gather. So I don't know if you can hear or see that, but that's sort of borderline, so we're going to sort that out. Rear diff is stripped. Oh, look, it's Birdie. Birdie comes in here for snacks. So, yeah, that's the diff there. We'll walk around this way because I've got to give Birdie a biscuit. Over here, we've got the diff housing. I've just been cutting off these spring perches. So, basically, this is what your 6-rod spring sits on, your rear spring. And you can see how thin it is there at the start. That should be 40mm thick all the way through. So, and it started to eat into the reinforcing plate on this diff housing. This plate here had a lot of rust behind it. So I've cut that off and cleaned it up, and I've drawn some new ones on the plasma cutter. So I'll be able to just cut that out on the plasma cutter and set a new plate over there. And then you can see that there then goes over that. I cut that off as well because it was rusty. We used the air arc gouger, which is a welder with a carbon arc rod and compressed air. So I'll give you, I'll show you how that works as well. I'm just cutting some new 40mm thick plate in the bandsaw to re-weld on there. And I'm not worried about wearing these out because it probably took 1 or 2 million Ks to get to that point. And I'm never going to do that, and anyone else will also struggle to do that. The KT's fuel burn will be too expensive for anyone to do 1 million Ks, that's for sure. So yeah, just going to cut some. I've done one there, and I cut along these lines here next. And that'll give me 4 new squares to go on both the front and rear diff and build that back up. So they should be like new, and then sandblast and put them back together. Look at this thing. What are you doing, Birdie? Yes, you're hungry, aren't you? It's a very needy bird. So we'll get stuck into it. I'll tackle those kingpins first without ruining my paint job, and we'll go from there. Okay, I got this side hub and spindle off. One good thing about this is you don't have to pull the backing plate off to get the pin out. A lot of axles, you have to pull the hub off, brakes off, backing plate here, so that you can get the pin out. You can see it's very close, and the pin just touched the backing plate, but it come out no worries, which is good. One thing I did notice that was wrong, see how all the grease is brown on the bottom? It's had contamination. I'm not sure if you can see in there, but that's a little lip seal right at the bottom there. And that's also meant to have a lip seal there, and it doesn't. So that just stops water, dirt, moisture getting in there and contaminating it. So that's why that bore's nice and clean and that one's not. There was no lip seal in there whatsoever. I'm not sure why it didn't get put in. I might figure that out. But yeah, in here they give you, if I can open it, in the little plastic thing, they give you 4 little seals in there. So that could have contributed to the bottom being worn and rusty and the top being nice and clean. So hopefully I can get that sorted out and put back together. I've got to knock out these spiral bushes and put the new spiral bushes in. Hopefully it comes out not too difficult. I may have to make a get a bit of solid and put it in the lathe and turn it down to be the right size to knock them out. But I can do that if needed. So I'll see if I can get them out, and if not, I'll go make a tool to get them out. I do have a bearing and seal install tool, but I'm not sure if there'll be one the right size, so I'll go find out if there is or not. Okay, I've got the bottom lip seal in. So you put it in with the lip facing out and towards the axle eye. Bit of a tip, I tried to put it in that way going in and it didn't really work out, sort of bent the seal, so I stuffed one, lucky got a spare. But you want to go this side of the axle, and the top side has a bit of a chamfer on it. So you want to start from the bottom and drive the seal up to flush there, and the same thing on the top. Start from the top and drive it flush down there with both lips facing the axle I-beam itself like that. So with the lip there, and then that way the grease can purge out and no dirt and water can get in. So we'll tap this seal in from the top down, and then we'll screw these bushes in and show you how to do that as well. Okay, I've got this side all back together. I didn't damage the paint too much. I've got the lock pins all in and everything. It's a little bit tighter than I would have liked, but when I take one shim out, it's too loose, and then I put one shim in and it's too tight, and it's the thinnest shims they give you. But there's definitely zero slop in this now. There is absolutely nothing at all in that. It still obviously turns, but it's just a bit tight. So hopefully it wears in. As long as it's not notchy in the steering, she'll be fine. I'll do the other side now, and I was going to give you guys a bit of a walkthrough on how to do it in case anyone has to do the same thing. So in this case, FF931 Rockwell with straight pins, steel beam, axle, not aluminium. The quick kit, no ream. Stem code number is K931L. Not the cheapest thing on earth, but yeah, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. So I'll set you guys up on a custom cardboard box so you can watch along. First thing is you've got your 3 bolts at the top, 3 bolts at the bottom, which are holding your dust caps on. I'll just get you set up so the sun isn't shining on the camera. We might put you up a bit higher, you can have bird's eye view. Alright, we'll go with that, I reckon. Preferably you'd do this before you paint everything, but I've done it a bit backwards here. Where's my razor blade there? I just run the razor blade around the bolts so that I don't tear off a big chunk of paint. When I go to undo these bolts, they give you new bolts, which is nice, so you don't have to worry too much about the bolts. The only scratch I put on the front axle, was when I turned this and I forgot it didn't have a steering stop, so the slack adjuster actually hits on the front of the axle. They only have a steering stop on one side, each side, and obviously when the tie rod is connected, you don't have to worry about it, but because I don't have the tie rod connected, I chipped a bit of paint. But anyway, you get that. So I also don't think the locking pins were tight enough on the other side. They were quite loose, and I reckon that's what was giving Kingpin some slop, which I could have just tightened them up, but I've got the kit, I've gone this far, so what's another half a day of work, you know? It's not the end of the world. We'll also have to see if they put the seal in this side or not, because it's a bit dodgy leaving the seal out. Obviously there's nothing to stop the water and crap getting in there. The front end's always going through puddles and dust and dirt and stuff like that, so it's not ideal leaving that out. But anyway, it's amazing how thick this paint gets built up on the bolts to the point where you almost can't get the right size spanner on it anymore. If you are doing this, probably just take the hub and backing plate off. It will make life easier in the long run. You don't have to lift the whole thing off at once, and you can set it up a bit easier without having to use the forklift. Obviously I'd like to do that, but then all of these bolts and all the paint, it's going to look all pretty disturbed, which I don't really want. So grease is a bit brown on this side too, so. And then you need 11/16 spanner, to undo the lock ring nuts. Those little 6 little bolts were 1/2 inch. Yeah, look, I don't know if you can see that, but that is not tight. You're meant to bash the pins in with a hammer, and then 40 foot-pounds is the torque spec. So I torqued it up to 40 foot-pounds, gave it another tap, torqued it up again, and I probably did that 4 or 5 times. And these bolts are actually, these nuts are actually flush with the end of the thread, and I've probably got a good 10-12 mil of thread sticking out the other side. So someone has done these before, but I don't think I've done it quite right. Yeah, I don't think so. Check this side, but I don't reckon this side might have 3 or 4 mil sticking out, and it's a little bit tighter, but still very easy to undo. I didn't have to put any force on that whatsoever. So that's a good thing to check then. Because if they're not all the way in, then the kingpin's going to be loose in the I-beam, in the axle eye, and it's going to turn and move. And as soon as that starts happening, you're going to wear out the eye of your axle, which is definitely not what you want. Because once they're worn out, you have to go to an oversized kingpin, I'm pretty sure. And I don't even know if you can buy oversized kits for these, so once that happens, you're probably changing your axle realistically. So, but anyway, I think luckily this one's alright. I don't think it's been like this for too long, because I don't reckon they were done that long ago. When you do those lock pins up, it definitely tightens up the stub axle a fair bit. So, and I think that's why this other side is a fair bit tighter as well. This one definitely doesn't have slop like the other side did. You can see how far that pin was sticking out where the paint mark is. On the other side, that's in flush. That's how much further I've got that knocked in. So, yeah, definitely not in far enough. So, it's very hard when using a hammer to not hit anything you've painted. So with those pins out, we can hook the forklift on there, and then take the weight, and then I'll knock the pin out the bottom, and go from there. Okay, we knock the pin out towards the bottom. You can knock it up as well, it doesn't matter, I don't think, on these ones. If it was tapered, it obviously would. That is a bit more solid than the other side. The other side almost just fell out. Wipe the grease away and get a bigger punch to punch it out. There's always one, isn't there? Might have to move the forklift out the way and give it a good smack. That's what I get for thinking it would be easy. Alright, I will come back after I have made some progress on this thing. Alrighty, to save me doing the edit many hours later, I've got the bottle jack under here supporting the axle so that it's not springing around on this table or bouncing around, so all the shock load has to go through the pin, and I've got it moving. I'm a bit puffed because I'm unfit, but yeah, I'm just trying to hold this with one hand and hit it out with the other. Tired, not built for this. Wow, did you see that? That's what I was trying not to do. My hand's getting tired. Lucky they make touch-up paintbrushes for these things. Oh, it's a big job. Big job. Flying out now. Oh, this is a big ordeal. Better hook the forklift back up now before it falls off. My fingers are numb now. I should have picked the other side to show you on, because it would have been a lot easier. It's made this one look real difficult, but this is probably more realistic. You sack. So it was obviously just stuck in, I don't know if you can see, in the middle there. Quite a bit of rust and stuff. So there you go. They don't all just fall out magically like the first one. Now I'm just going to make sure that the other one I went through that hole, this one I'm through there, so I'm just going to make sure when I pull this off it doesn't fall over. Which it should be okay. I think we'll just go forwards and up a little bit. I definitely left the harder side till last, that's for sure. But anyway, I'll give it a wipe and see if this side has the seal in it. Yep, this side has the seal in it, so maybe that's why the other side was worn and this side wasn't. But I just wanted to pull this side apart so that I could be sure that it had a seal in it. The other reason why I thought it was worthwhile doing this side was, see there, the seal in the bearing has started to pop out. So yeah, I thought that was another good excuse to do this side. So on the top side you've got shims. The rule of thumb is to put in, they come in 5 thou and 10 thou increments, I believe, and you want to put in 5 thou more than what was in it to account for wear. I'm not sure if this side will take 5 thou more, but so you can sort of feel them in your fingers. These real paper thin ones are 5 thou, and then these thicker ones, they don't bend as easy, are 10 thou. So if there's no more stuck on there, which I don't think there is, and there's no more stuck on here, this has got 25 thou in it. And I put 30 thou in the other side. So I'll try 30 thou in this side and we'll see what it's like. So yeah, and then I'm going to have to figure out how to sling it a bit better to get it back on. Yeah, I'll smack the bushes and the seals out of the spindle hub. Then we'll clean them up. You're meant to clean the bores up with a brake hone. I don't think I actually have a brake hone. No, I don't have one small enough to do that, so I'm going to have to do it by hand with some Scotch-Brite or emery paper. You don't want to take too much out because then obviously the pin's going to be loose in there. So you don't want to do that. This is my thing I found. I didn't even turn this down. But yeah, that's turned down a bit and that's roughly the size of the bore. So you just need something like that. I think it's like 48 mil or something. Approximate to that size. So easy as that, and then do it on the other side. And then we give it all a clean up. So I might give it all a brake clean and an emery cloth and tidy it up a bit, and then we can put the new bushes and seals in. So I have wire wheeled the pin bore with this wire brush. You can see that it's bigger than the hole. I just forced it in there and span the drill, and it did a good job of getting everything out. I could not get this pin in by hand before, and I haven't taken any of the metal out, just the rust, and now that slides in there perfect. I even got a little bit of slop. That's how much rust it had in there. So, and obviously when you drop it in and put the tapered lock pin in each side, that's what takes the slop out of the pin. It's just starting to rain outside, so it could get loud in here. But now that that's cleaned up, we'll knock the seals in to these bores, and then we'll spin the spiral bushes in by hand. It's pretty important when they come in their own little plastic case. So they're real tiny, and they're really easy to bend when you tap them in. So there's a slight chamfer in the top side and the bottom side of the bores. So I tried putting one in just in there, and there's no chamfer, and it's almost impossible to get in, I reckon. So that's why the manual tells you to go down from the top, because it's tapered, or has a slight chamfer, not tapered, but you get what I mean. So to put them in, I use the same thing that I used to knock out the spiral bushes, but to get them started, I was just starting them with the snap-on seal driver. It's a little bit big, so it's not quite the right size. Need my little hammer. And now, so the way you want to put it in is, you want to put it in with the seal lip this side towards the axle. So this side has no lip, this side has a lip. So you put the lip side towards the axle, and that lets the grease pressure out, but doesn't let dirt and water in. So then once I got it started, I go around here and get the thing I was using to drive the bushes out. And I use that. To drive that in, and you want to be flush with the bottom. So you don't want to be sticking out any, and you don't want to be in too far, because the spiral bush won't seat all the way down. So you just want to be level. And if you knock it all the way out, you have to start again. Just like that. And then you do the same to the bottom side. Get the seal, lip towards the axle, and start from the bottom and work your way in towards the axle. Alright, now once the seals are in, like that, we can move on to putting the bushes in. Here's a close-up look at the bush. I haven't quite seen anything like these ones before. So it's literally like a spring, like a helicoil or something like that, but it's a bush. It's just a big slinky. So hopefully you can see there, which you should be able to. You get the bush and you put it in on a bit of an angle and you turn it clockwise. I just realised that is not on very good. It's barely on the hook. Let me fix this. Okay. I didn't even look up there. The sling was about to fall off the hook. So, as I was saying, try and spin it around. You put this on there, and what you're going to do is and once you sort of get it started, now I'm making it look hard. Did the other side in 2 seconds flat. Once you get it started, you should just be able to twist and a bit of pressure inwards. Without stabbing your hand. And then once it gets too tight, you can change over to a pair of long nose pliers and finish twisting it in. Instructions say to grab it an inch from the end and twist. And eventually it goes most of the way in, and then you kind of have to follow it up with the special tapping device, and you can give it a bit of a tap in. I need to wind it in a little bit more. That, and apparently it's just past flush with the bottom, is what the instructions say. And I would call that just past flush with the bottom. And then repeat on the other side. Start on an angle, clockwise. I just made that other one look difficult, see? That's how it should be. And then you want to grab the pin, make sure it goes in the top side, like that, and then the bottom side, and then then make sure it goes all the way through. The seals obviously make it a bit tighter, but you just want to make sure that the pin is not tight at all, which it's not. Just like that. And then the next step is to go an extra shim, well, an extra 5 thou of shim. So if I've got, what did I say I had? 2 10 thous and a 5 thou, so it's 25 thou. So we'll put in 3 10 thou shims, and then the bearing should, the bottom bearing, I'll just show you the bearing that I'm talking about. This is the thrust bearing here. So this side faces down and sits on the spindle, and this side goes to the I-beam, the axle, and basically the seal creates a seal on that rubber ring there and forces grease down into the bearing, so it greases your it comes up from the bottom and greases there and creates a seal against the I-beam. So the instructions aren't very descriptive on the way that this goes, but I checked 4 other trucks outside and they're all down this way, and this is the way that I pulled it apart. So that's the way I'm putting it back together. So that's down, that's on the I-beam, that creates a seal, the grease comes up from the bottom, greases the bearing, and then comes out between the axle and here. So this should be push in fit. I should be able to push it in or lightly tap it in. You don't want to hit it in. So, and that's what the shims do. So if it's too tight, shim too tight, you won't get the bearing in. And if it's too loose, you'll have up and down play and won't be sitting on your bearing properly. So I'll get 3 10 thou shims. 3 shims there. This is obviously a lot easier if I had the backing plate and everything off, but I don't, and we've discussed that. So if anyone points it out in the comments that, oh, I should have pulled it apart, you can keep that one to yourself, I reckon, because I know. Got to sling this better so that it's not sideways. I need a better spot to sling it from, and it's got quite a bit of weight on it. There we go, we're level. Now I'll drop that down, slide it on there, poke the shims in, drop the pin in, see if the bearing goes in. If the bearing doesn't go in, we'll take away 1 10 thou shim and a 5 thou shim, bringing it back to the original shim thickness. And then is that close? I'm not sure. Oh yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. So I'll show you. This pin has a specific way it goes. It says top right there, and the top faces, I don't know if you can see, this thing doesn't like autofocus by itself. So see how it says top there, and that faces out away from the truck. So we'll poke these shims under here, drop the pin down, don't jam the fingers, that sucks. Roughly line that up, give it all a bit of a jiggle. you don't hit the top of the pin with a hammer though, you gotta use a bit of brass. You can probably see better than me from where I'm sitting on the forklift. Yeah, and then with our bearing, what we want to be able to do is just a nice slip fit in there, which it is. This is better than the other side. And I'll get a 5/10 shim and just see if I can slip it between the bearing, because that went in a little bit too easy, I think. If I can get this 5/10 shim in that I have here in my hand, and between the bearing and there, we'll go for another one. If I can't, then it will. Yes, it's looking like we're going to go another one. Okay. So we repeat that process now. We're going to lift it up, pull the pin up, drop another shim in it, and then put it back down again till you get it right. So it's a little bit of a tedious process, but we'll get there eventually. This is the hard thing about doing everything, right? It all takes time, but it's worth it. So in here, because it's a thrust bearing, you got needle rollers in here, obviously roller bearings. So I just go in each little gap, I fill that up with grease with the grease needle in the grease gun, Milwaukee of course, and yeah, and then I tap it in there. So we'll do that now. Got a mess here, need to clean up. The faces matter too much because grease is going to get pumped out between them when you initially grease your kingpins and every time after. And it's not really, the faces are meant to stay fixed, so it's not really meant to turn on the faces, so there shouldn't really be any wear there. The rollers are taking all the load, so we want to poke that in there, which it almost goes 3/4 of the way by hand, and then I used the rubber hammer before to tap it in the rest of the way. Can't hit it too hard. If you hit it too hard, it won't turn in there anymore, and it will go notchy, and then you'll have notchy steering, and you don't want that. Drive it in until you can see through those two locking pin holes down here, because they line up with the grooves on the pin. that. It's lovely. Lovely, lovely. Then we can put the lock pins in. There's two different lengths. The longer one goes down the bottom and the shorter one goes up the top. So we see we've got a bit of slop there at the moment. That's because there's a little bit of play in the kingpin hole in the axle. So that's fine, because these lock pins have a taper on them, which act as a wedge. So, and because you've got a wedge on each side, it gets tighter. So you can see the ramp in that. Hopefully it's focusing. I'm too short for where I've got my phone, but both got a ramp in them. So with one pushing that way and one pushing that way, it makes it tighter in the bore. And that's what takes the rest of that little bit of slop out. See, and that's already flush. Remember how I showed you the last one with the paint line on it? How it wasn't all the way in? I think that was contributing to some of our kingpin looseness. So you always want to make sure you drive them in with a hammer and punch, and then you know for sure they're seated, because if you just do them up to 40 foot-pounds and don't hammer them in, then they're not going to be all the way in. And then we have issues with like what we've got right now. So already we should be able to feel less slop. And there's no slop at all in there. The only slop I can feel is a slight bit in the wheel bearing, and that's it. So now we put the nuts on, which were Mara 11/16, and I've got the torque wrench already set to 40 foot-pounds. That's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. Hopefully, if some of you blokes have to do kingpins on your truck, it helps out, maybe provides a bit of insight on how to do it. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and we'll be back in another couple of weeks with another video, hopefully working on some rear diffs and getting them ready to go back under the truck. Thanks for watching. Cheers.